Yeah, so we're live. So, Chloe, you were telling me about your weekend routine.
Well, weekly, like I leave the house like once a week now, essentially. Uh, yeah, because I just work from home. There's not really much reason to leave the house throughout the week, especially if I'm working long hours. So that's basically how it is.
So,
I have
when you go out on weekend, what do you do exactly?
just go to the store, get things I need. That is just easier just to go into the store to get, and then I just make sure we get everything that I would need in one trip, and then I come home. That's basically it. It's don't really do much else outside because I mean, unless like yeah, sometimes I do have lunch with a friend, but if we don't have lunch, then it's a very utilitarian excursion outside. Like wash the car, get gas, get some groceries, pick up a package. That's basically it.
Cool, cool. I thought I didn't know you were working from home anyway. I thought maybe you had in your new job that you'd been going to the office and all that. Is this a new arrangement or
Mm,
this is the way it's been since you
this
started?
this has been the way it has been since I had to go into the office for the first week because it's in a different state. But then once I got all of my equipment and set up, most of the people there are working from home as well, except when they have to go in for very particular things into the office. But you know, the sector that I work in is it was much easier to transition it to be remote anyway, and yeah, that's kind of how it was since the beginning of the pandemic. Only kind of maybe for like 2 months I was kind of going into a office. Even then sometimes it kind of felt futile, but yeah, it's I've gotten used to it, so it's not like sad. I don't want it to sound sad. I think it sounds sad.
Steve, welcome. How are
Hey
you
Steve.
doing, Steve? Steve is off. Steve is off. But do you enjoy working from home? Do you enjoy it,
I
or
actually
you'd
do.
prefer going to the
I
really?
do prefer working from home because it's just for me it's easier to manage my time, and because like let's say I could easily like in a 5-minute break like put dishes in the dishwasher and then start the dishes, or hey Ben,
Hi, Chloe. Hi, Charles. How's it going?
yeah, yeah, just talking about
Hi, Ben. I'm
Boy,
good.
don't even say hi to me.
We
Dang.
did, or they did. I heard it.
No,
I heard
you.
it. Oh, I'm sorry, Steve. We thought you were away.
No,
Now, now, now,
I'm
your
trying to fix
headset.
my headset. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah, your
cause
headset finally
Gotcha.
worked when you had to call out Ben, right, Steve?
I was not
yeah.
expecting a
it
face reveal,
magically
by
works.
the way. I had originally joined on this, and it wasn't letting me through, and the camera wasn't on, and then it wouldn't work. And here I am. Yeah, here's a face reveal. Now everybody knows. Hello, world.
Yeah.
Anyway, hi, Charles. Hi, everybody.
Hey,
Hi, I'm good. How you doing?
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. So I was just asking Chloe about how she spends her weekend and whether she likes working from home, and she was talking about that because I have a colleague, or I had a colleague, because in my former company we both left, and now the company she's working with is a fintech company, and they work from home. And then she's complaining that she wants to go back to the office, that she just needs to see people, she needs human contact, and that this working from home is not is not working for her. So I was just kind of wondering, uh, who likes working from home or who doesn't like working from home?
I've been working from home for honestly the majority of the last couple years. Um, I it is nice. I do like it. There's some real benefits to it. I'm careful to say that it is a kind of a privilege because a lot of people don't get
yeah.
the opportunity. Um, on the other hand, it certainly doesn't. It's not perfect, and it can get complicated, especially when you're sharing a space, with someone else. Like my wife and I both have been working from home a lot. So you see each other a lot. You don't get out a whole lot. Where I'm at right now, it's very cold. You don't go outside a lot. So I'm actually feeling pretty stir crazy. Got a bit of cabin fever going right now, but it has its benefits.
What about you, Steve? Oh, Steve. No, Steve cannot. You can't work from home, right? You have to go to the shop, or is the shop in there? Oh, Steve is gone. Mr. Pilu, you like working from home?
I don't work from home, so no, I don't work from home, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
always
It's
can
work
hear him.
outside.
Can you hear him?
Yes, I only work outside. I only work out I only work at job sites. Like I never worked at home before. Only
Oh,
work home. Only homework I ever did was schoolwork.
I
oh,
yeah.
like that.
Yeah. It's I mean like the thing is that you have to at least be intentional. Like, like I said, I still see people and I have to, and actually the person that I typically got to lunch with, we worked together anyway. So I was, I if we actually saw each other in person, it was for social reasons, not for work reasons. When we were both working for the same company remotely, we would go out to lunch like at a park or something like that, and like, but like it just, you have to be intentional about it, because I think a lot of people kind of go into the default mode of, well, I can just automatically expect my job to meet my social needs. And when I think like during the pandemic, people were kind of running on autopilot and realized that like they kind of let go of that piece of control to like a company or just the circumstances that they just happen to be in. And that, in this new world, we actually have to do things intentionally and actually consciously think about things. Like in the past, no one really had to think about like, am I socially isolating myself too much? Because, especially in a hunter-gatherer society, we inherently relied on other people, so we had to have social contact. But now, like, it's easy for someone to be a shut-in and never to have any contact with people, and so like much easier. So like we actually have to think about these things that were autopilot before.
yeah. So, guys, welcome to the live stream today. So let's. That was just a bit of a preamble, to get more people to come into the stream. So today's topic, we're talking about finding honor in a morally bankrupt world. From when we're deciding on what to talk about today, one of the questions came up was that, is, do we still have honor in the society, in today's society? And the obvious answer was yes. But I do think that, despite the fact that honor is there, it's always going to be there. But I think that either there's a lessening of it, or there's just a problem with people being much more honorable. And I can give an example with something that happened to me much more recently. um, Remember a few weeks ago, I told you guys I was traveling for my uncle's wedding and my car broke down on the way. So the filling station that we parked in, to get the car fixed, there was a mechanic there. He wasn't around at that time. So there was another driver there. The driver came in and was trying to help us out. The security man was there. So we were trying to call the mechanic to just get the stuff. When he's coming, he fixes it and we'll be off. Um, but the security man there told the driver that they should try and delay us so that the car can spend the night there, so we can pay them for watching the car over the night. That was what the security man told the other driver. And the driver said, you know what, I can't, my conscience will not allow me to do something like this. So he came and he told us that, look, if you guys have to find a way to fix your car, fix it. This is what this man said, and I'm not cool with it. And it just got to me, like, and there were so many other things that happened during that whole episode that just got me wondering, what has happened to people, people's conscience, what has happened to honor, what has happened to just being nice to people in distress and all that. And it just got to me, like, are people still honorable? Although, yes, people are still honorable, because the other man came and told us that this is what this person is talking about. but it just goes to show to you that there's a real glut in society. I don't know how to put it, but something is really going on that's not right. So what do you guys think about that honor into this, and how do we find it into this morally bankrupt world?
Hey, before we start, I want to add one thing. How do we know the previous generation more honorable than now? It's easy to say, oh, in this generation, in this time, but how do we know it was any better before? That's all I want to add. Thank you. Before everybody starts, I want everybody to consider that too.
Yeah, that's a good question. So let's go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Pelu in that. I think, there have always been dishonorable people and honorable people, but I think today, just in general, I think we notice it a lot more because people have before an outsized capacity of, having their behavior like platformed, and, we can, like, someone can not really be like famous like nationally or something like that, but like all suddenly all of their scummy behavior is now suddenly spotlighted. Like, I think I recently found out about like West Sam Caleb, like this guy who he would date girls on Tinder and then just ghost them. And I guess he dated enough girls in New York City, to the point where there was like a viral moment about him in which people were literally calling in death threats and calling in like to the company that he worked at to be fired. And one can say that his actions weren't really that honorable, but his actions weren't really like necessarily that bad enough to someone to call for him to get fired. But it was we live in a world where one little thing can be highlighted in a way that these types of things weren't highlighted before. So it feels like these behaviors are running more rampant than maybe they are, because, like, no one is going to have a viral moment of someone who just acts like a normal, decent person. Like, no one's going to make a story about that. They make a story about people acting shitty.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, Ben, go ahead.
I think it's really difficult now. I think that it's easier to be dishonorable because the internet acts as kind of a screen door, so that you can, say what you want. You can, you can be whatever kind of person you want to be, whether that's good or bad. And there's very little way of us, kind of keeping track of what you're doing, or of how honest you're being. On one hand, I think that's bad. On the other hand, something like China's social credit system scares the heck out of me. So I'm kind of okay with the status quo if it means not having that. So that's where I'm at.
Steve.
Yeah. What's up?
Yeah, were you listening to us at all? You're still battling with
Yeah, a little
the
bit.
headset. Okay. So
Hold on.
Stanley, let's hear you. Stanley's been chatting in the private.
I'm on the fence, and I know this is gonna go contrary to my left leanings, but honor never left. It's here. We've been
Okay.
trained not to see it. We've been trained not to respect it. We have been trained to ignore it often. That's my position.
So you don't think that human behavior is getting worse?
Nope. It's, come on. Human behavior is getting worse. We just see more of it. Chloe's right. We just see more of it.
I think it's both. I think we see more of it, and I think it's also
I
getting
would
worse.
disagree that it's both. I think Chloe's right. It's more online. It's more live. It's more observable. Human beings really haven't. Well, who asked about were our parents or the generation before more honorable? I mean, you could make that argument. I don't think that's so. I just think we see more of it.
I think it
they're
wasn't
all
as celebrated before.
Say that again.
I would say it was honor was more celebrated before. Now it's making fun of
Oh,
people and cheering on
no, it
bum
wasn't.
fights that are now
Well,
well
what was
celebrated.
called honor, yes, I agree. What was called honor was more celebrated, but um, that's kind of a separate topic, and I would love to hear your idea of what was called honor before. But
but so I will say that we've I don't think people necessarily fundamentally have changed, but we have we have drastically changed the environment, which might change our behavior. Like, of course, social media is a big example, and then it changes our perception of other people. But also, like, we have created increasingly complicated systems in which causes us to maybe make a different moral decision based off of the cost benefit analysis relative to like what you would probably say before. So like, here's an anecdote of, this is probably one reason why I'm really glad I left my first job. And so it's part of a larger company. It's a pretty big company. And so when you have a company of that size, there are certain types of things that are audited, in terms of, especially if you have, making sure that people do their time cards on time every single day. They actually are accurately doing filling out their time cards so that they can accurately charge whatever customer, certain hours, whatever. And so they're very strict about that. And we had multiple trainings of saying, like, if, like, some auditors might come to site, and if we are graded low on this, then, the site is going to be dinged. So everyone needs to do this. But if they're kind of increasing the pressure to have these good results and have these good results, it doesn't necessarily, yes, it gets people to sign in their time cards more regularly, but if they don't, when they're audited, they're basically pressured to lie. So like, that's basically what happened to me at one point. It was that I had to, the day before, like, it was a really long trip. I actually was traveling that day. And so the next day when I came into work, I hadn't filled in my time card because, I got home from work at like 10 p.m. or something like that. And I didn't go back to my computer to fill out my time card. And so next morning I got into work, and there was like this lady there at my desk saying like, okay, this is just one of those audits that I was told about. And she said like, okay, did you do this and that? And I was honest with her and said like, she asked me if I filled out my time card, and I told her no, I didn't. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she was like, it's fine. Like she was completely like there was no negative consequences. She was, I was honest with her, and she was fine with it. And then, so I didn't really worry about it. I didn't think much about it. But then after she left, one of like another cubicle person on the other side, he walked over and he said like, you should have lied. Like, he actively told me I should have lied and that I was lucky that she let me go. But he said, you should have lied. We could have had much more negative consequences from you telling the truth. And I felt like, why am I like this is, I felt really weird, because it's like, why suddenly am I being encouraged to lie? No one, like, that wasn't part of like the company culture or whatever.
Can
But
I
like,
ask a question?
yeah,
What do you think you should have done?
I told the truth. I did what I should have done. Like, I told the truth.
Definition of honor.
My definition.
Yeah. So no, he's saying that's the definition of
Oh,
honor.
okay.
You doing the right thing. Yeah. So this brings us to the points that Ben is raising in the private chat. So he said, let us
You
define what
stopped. I
honor
was going
is.
to fuss at her for not being honorable. It's a joke. It's a joke.
So from my definition of honor, I'll see it as, knowing and doing what is morally right, maybe respect and all that. I don't know if anybody has any other definitions of honor that they want to prefer. Or do you agree with my definition?
One definition I like to use for honor a lot of times, or similar concepts, is is How's the definition? It's responsibility to reality. Your responsibility to reality. There we go. Your responsibility to
Can you
reality.
explain that further? Can you break down that for us? What do you
Because
mean by
in life,
responsibility to reality?
because reality compels you to act certain ways. Like your situation compels you to act certain ways. You're compelled by where you see something. If you see, okay, if you see it's raining, you put an umbrella. But I'm just using like a easy example, right? So reality, your response to reality, or like yes, I mean when I mean responsibility, I mean like responding to it. When you responding, because that's the root word of responsibility is to respond. You responding to reality is honor.
But that's for you. That's not something that affects someone else. So
Yeah, but
how?
honor is internal. Honor is internal. It's internal, really, more than anything.
Well, I actually have an answer for that. Surprisingly enough, go figure. So if you take the old school way of thinking, Arthur Schopenhauer wrote on this in his book on aphorisms to live a happy life, I believe it was. And in that, he defined three distinct different types of honor. One was universal, one was civic, and one was knightly. Now, knightly was the more extreme. Those are the ones where we can argue where honor societies going around killing the wrong people or killing, civilians for no reason. That's what knightly honor kind of represents, is that kind of an extreme side of honor. And then you have civic honor, and how he described that was civic honor is the backbone of society. So when you enter into a society, people excuse me, people need to know that they can trust you, right? So if you think about honor as a system of trusting your fellow citizen, it makes it much easier to understand why honor was so important throughout pretty much all time. You know what I mean? You had to be able to trust the people that were in your tribe, and you had to trust your family with them, your food with them, your house with them. And so this honor system came built out of that as a form of trust between each other. And honor is what we give each other when they prove that trust.
I'd like to, first of all, I agree with what you just said, Steve, and I'd like to embellish that a little bit by actually looking at the English definitions for honor. So there are actually, it's used in 4 different ways that I can see here. In two ways as a noun and in 2 ways as a verb. So as a noun, it means high respect or great esteem. Or it also means adherence to what is right or to a conventional standard of conduct. So the verb version of it means to regard with great respect or to fulfill an obligation or to keep an agreement. All of those things say to me that, first of all, it's a kind of value. A person who is honorable is a valued person. A person who who probably has the goodwill and bona fides or good credit of most people. Like, that would be an idea of that. Maybe someone who is known to fulfill their obligations or keep their commitments or hold true to their agreements. And I think that, like, that would be actually my version of what it is to be honored. And it is both an internal thing and an external thing. It's both individual and communal, to agree with Steve and Mr. Pelu further.
Mm. But I've heard stories of the time where people didn't have to lock their doors, where they could sleep in peace, and they wouldn't fear for their lives, they wouldn't fear for their properties being boggled and all that. But right now, you pretty much have to have sort of maximum security. For example, I have dogs in my compound. I had to buy dogs because my fence is kind of low, and I really just need something that will be around if anyone tries to come into the compound, something that will
You
alert me
have
and
a
all that.
compound? Is that the same thing as a villa?
It's not a villa. It's
You knew
okay.
I
It's what we
would
call.
let that go.
So
Okay,
I'm imagining it like a lot of places in
in
like
my
I was.
compound.
Yeah, it reminds me of Puerto Rico. If you go to Puerto Rico, all of these houses have no,
Hey,
for real. They've
Ben,
got like
you read,
multiple layers of
you know
defense. It's
Hemingway,
crazy.
right? He
Not
had,
very well.
no, seriously. But I'm teasing. I will go. And I do have one question, but not now. I'll put it in the chat. Notice I'm trying to be more polite. But a villa? Really?
It's
Who
not a villa. It's not a
who's
villa,
richer
Stanley.
than whom?
It's a it's a house. There are two flats, myself and my neighbor, and there's space. There's just space at the front, and that's it.
Yes. Yes,
Nothing.
Charles.
Oh goodness, nothing. It's not a mansion. Anyhow, so the point I was getting at is that I've seen things change even within my lifetime. I was in a city where I grew up about 2 years ago, and I saw a young kid. He was he basically slapped an older man, someone that could be his father or even his grandfather. And what happened? There was an altercation, and the old man slapped the kid, and the kid said he was going to slap the old man back. And they were trying to hold this kid. He maneuvered, found his way to hit this old man. And this is something that would not have happened years ago. But kids now are so emboldened. In fact, everybody is having a field day with whatever they want to do. So that's what's making me think that honor might still be there, but it is deteriorating. I don't know if anyone else has seen it.
Sorry, I was muted. I think what you're talking about, it sounds like deteriorating social bonds. I mean, one thing is like in places that have a high population, and I think Ben knows the name of this number, but like the amount of people that you can kind of keep social connections with, once we
Bars
kind of,
number.
yeah, the once you kind of get to people beyond that, they just kind of become abstractions, and you don't really have any social obligations to them. If like this is a person you conceive you're never going to see them again, or they have nothing on you, like they have no, they're, if you screw them over, right, there are no negative consequences that are going to come your way because you're not really socially connected to them. And it seems like that's the way that honor works, right? Like you are living up to your responsibilities, and people acknowledge that you're living up to your responsibilities because they're connected to you. And I think that today, and I think that also kind of goes into like, again, how social media goes, you don't know these people. Like why, like, you see like the proliferation of scams online, of people scamming people out of money. And it's really easy to do that when you don't even have to look people in the face when you take their money. It's just, it's they put in their information through PayPal, or they sign up for wherever course, and it's like, a funnel, and it's just all these automatic processes. And so at the end of the day, this person who's acting dishonorably, they don't really get the negative social connotation, except maybe people are saying bad things about them on the internet, but it's not like their mother is hearing this information. It's not like the people, their neighbors, know about this about them. They just see, they're like, oh, this person has money. But I think there's something to actual real life relationships holding you to account to certain behaviors. And when people decoupled their behaviors from real life consequences, like that's how humans' brains work. We weren't, we did not evolve to like primarily socialize through Twitter. And I think
But
Twitter is the
but
obvious example of like it's
but
not working.
what you're saying now is explaining how it's on the rise. It's not telling us is it really on the rise, or I don't know. What you're saying now is sort of confirming that it actually is on the rise, and the reason why it's on the rise is because that interpersonal relationship is not there.
Yeah, so I think in both ways it is on the rise, but if the more people participate in this, but like in real life, I don't think it's in real life. I don't necessarily think it's going, it's on the rise in real life, because I mean, yeah, there are always some people who are scummy enough to try to scam people in real life, and I think that's those people's personalities. But I think it does bring it out in people when you have this abstraction of the screen. But they, like, at the same time, they might not do that to someone that they know. Like, the types of stuff that they do online would be the same, like they would never do that in person. And I think that juxtaposition is something that's going to be even more prevalent in the future.
Hey,
Let's
let me jump in real quick. You mind if I jump in? Piggyback
yeah, go
on
ahead,
what
go
Chloe
ahead.
said. I hear you, Chloe said, but I think that's wrong. And the reason why I think that's wrong because I grew up in the hood. And I know people scam you right in your face, like no, like the same people scamming will scam you in your face. The criminals are still going to do. They might not do it. They might try to be slicker by a different way. But people with a criminal mentality just have a criminal mentality. That's one thing I knew when I grew up in the hood. If that's your mentality, that's just your mentality. It's not because it's a screen that's the reason why you're scamming. You was gonna scam anyway. That's the tool you use to scam at a certain time. So I can't agree with that part though in my life experience because even recently, people as a guy try to scam me, try to take my phone and try to call people, try to get money from people. I mean, I know how the hood is. Like I live in the hood, so they'll try to scam you. Of course, if they know you directly because it's less consequences. Yes, they know you directly, right? But it's not because of the screen. Is that behavior was always there?
Well, I guess what I'm talking about more so is like not criminal behavior, but like, like fake gurus, right? Like people, like the things that they're doing is not inherently illegal, but like they're promising things that they can't really deliver on, and they're over promising and not really delivering on things that it's not worth what they're charging, that type of stuff. And yeah, I agree with you. Like, yeah, if you're willing to do crime, you're going to do crime in whatever medium you're exposed to. But I think, I don't know. It's like, like the concept of like, like Kickstarter or GoFundMe scams, right? Like, people, like I think I heard of like this one woman, what she did was she took a picture of herself on a dirty couch with children, implying that these were her children. They weren't her children, but saying like, I need money. But she kind of let that image kind of go up as if she she was like, a single mom with like, all these kids. But like, yeah, she wouldn't have been able to really pull that off. It was like, Charlene, yeah, no, like she's bad with money. Like, I'm not going to give her a cent. But she's able to do that now because she's able to interact with strangers who don't know that she's just not someone to be trusted.
I still don't. I still think she would have found a way. I still think, look, people have been bluffing forever. That's just bluffing, and like, people have been bluffing forever. People have been exaggerating forever. People have been lying forever. People, you know what I'm trying to say? It's easy to say, oh, it's a modern thing because even me, I've only been adult this generation. I don't know about last generation, but I can't believe. I mean, I know people have been doing.
Easier. I'm saying it's easier. Like she doesn't have to be as creative.
Let's
because
use the media as an example, Mr. Pelu. Let's use the media as an example. Would you say that the media has gotten much more dishonorable and corrupt in the last decade?
No, not necessarily. We just got more of it. Like we got more cable news 24 hours a day. We got more of it, and it's just like it got stretched out maybe. But I can't necessarily it's been more dishonorable because I mean you don't know what they were doing before. Like you might have known it's more dishonorable now, or you might have or more scandals might have came out than before. But you don't know what's really. I mean, it's hard to say that. That's a judgment. Is really hard for me to say. I mean, I would have to do research and find how many scams did what and what did what, and then do this, then a third. But can I necessarily say that? Objectively speaking, I cannot say that at all. Objectively speaking.
Yeah. To be fair, yellow journalism absolutely predates clickbait. Like yellow journalism has been a thing for over 100 years. Because there's a profit motive.
Sorry, what?
Ben is just in his head. Ben is thinking of something else.
No. I've been listening to what everybody else has been saying. What's the question that you were asking?
No,
Charles?
no.
I forget.
I saw you shaking your head, so I thought probably you had a point that you wanted to get across when Chloe was speaking.
No, I'm just thinking about people being people, and it makes me laugh. When Chloe was talking, when Mr. Paley was talking, well, okay, so I used to live in Flint, Michigan, like pretty much kind of close to downtown. Relatively nice area, to be honest, for the city. But some of the stuff Mr. Pelu was saying, I totally agree with. Unless you've lived in the hood, you're not ready. People will take advantage of you. People who you wouldn't think, who you wouldn't expect it of. Like, for example, even, I don't know. I think it's just people like even beggars or whatever. I had like a situation with a gentleman who was homeless, where you want to give and you want to be kind and you want to help people out, and then there is a point to where people take it to a level that's just not comfortable, and it happens. And sometimes people like do that on purpose. They purposefully see your weakness or your naivete, and then they take advantage of it. And so yeah.
So I'll state my bias, right? My bias is that I grew up in the woods, because in that instance, like, it's a much smaller community, and like if I if something like if I spent out on the ice and then I got my car stuck in the snow, 100% know that someone's going to come by and help me pull me out, right? There's always, because it's such a harsh environment, because like if you are known to not help people, like you're going to be in a sticky situation where you're going to die. And you can easily die
in
15
Alaska
minutes.
Did you grow up in the mountains? Or I
Not in
recognize yeah, you help people because they will help you. I was
yeah.
just curious.
Well, I mean, like
Mountains or
it's like the center of Alaska, mostly like Fairbanks area. I guess yeah, hilly, right? But I saw Denali every day. It was beautiful. But yeah, it was a much smaller community, and like
now
yeah,
I'm gonna sorry.
no, I'm just saying, like, you don't want a reputation of like being an awful person.
Yeah,
Because,
no, it could work out poorly for you, right? Like you need something from somebody, and then they're just like, dude, like, why would I mess with you?
Yeah, you screwed them up. Like,
You reminded me of something. I will maybe it's a future show. Charles put a couple things up there. I think the theme is Black people aren't urban.
How? What do you mean by that?
TV?
Uh-oh.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, no, I understand what he's saying though, and he's right though. No, I understand what he's saying, but and me too. That's one thing. That's one thing. Hey, that's wait. Oh, let me jump in, Stanley. Yeah, because and that's one thing that's one. You know how y'all didn't. You know how y'all didn't like people of color. My word I don't like for Black folks is urban. I always hated that word. Like they don't make no sense. What's urban? Like really like it's like. It to me it was so dumb. It was the dumbest thing, and the people kept doing it, like urban radio, urban clothing, urban. I'm like it does. I'm like it's so dumb. It's almost like they try to make a word just not to say what it is. Like it's Black folk stuff, right? Just because it's like they're trying to say black without saying black. I'm like, I'd rather you just say this is Black folk music, Black folk clothing. I don't say it's urban clothing, urban. It's Black folk stuff. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yes. 100%.
Not a fan,
Mr. Pello.
So
I'll stop there, but and I've gotten off topic, but Mr. Pello, Ben, I'd welcome y'all to talk at some point about this. Black people aren't all inner city. We didn't.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna make a joke. Some of the best people I know, my grandparents talked me into killing a chicken. And yeah, it was scary.
That's some country boy
now?
stuff, Stanley. I've done that. That's some country boy stuff.
I do that all the time.
Oh, you don't know me, Ben.
Oh, dude, Charles, I love it,
lived
man.
on a
You
network.
you live for real. I love it. That's
No,
hardcore.
I do not live for real. It's experience. You don't start real, you get to be real
Okay, so
after years.
another experience that I wanted to relate from that my story was, now the guy, there was, because there wasn't really any transportation there, so there was this motorcycle. There are motorcycles that take people to the center of the city to get stuff. So I had to go with one of the motorcycles to go buy something. And this guy took me into the city, took me farther into the city, and came back with me just so I could pay him more. When there was a place that was closer, that was just a few minutes away, he could have taken me to. Obviously, the fare would be cheaper, but he just preferred to take me farther so he could
Quick
make more
question.
money.
Did you drive yourself?
I did, yeah. I drove myself. Any point to that question?
I think it was it sounded like an Uber trip.
No.
No, he's trying to
I was,
say it was it's based on the call Okada. We call Okada in Serbia. We call it Okada. It's like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just like
yeah.
it's
Okada, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
It,
Pelo
it,
understands what I'm talking about.
yeah, you just
Yep,
it's almost like a ride. It's almost like it's like Uber, but it's like a taxi, but it's like a taxi on a motorcycle. That's all it is, a motorcycle taxi. It's all it is, a
exactly.
motorcycle taxi. But yeah, but I just want to jump
Time,
in and say
time.
no, wait. I just want to say like the thing that you're talking about,
The
Charles.
point being,
I can imagine the same thing happening in ancient Rome. Like you went there and some guy in the
no.
wheelbarrow made you go further to pay. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's a modern thing. I think that could happen anytime. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course, like the Okada driver or the little or the porter try to extend the thing to get more money. That's something I don't think that's a sign of the times at all. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I want to add. I can't see that as a sign of the time. Like I could imagine that happened in the 1920s. In a buggy driver did the same thing in the 1920s or the whatever. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's all I want to add to that.
You have a point, Mr. Pelo. I'm really, really trying to see your point, but on the other hand, I'm still skeptical that things haven't gotten any worse than they used to be.
Well, I think that we're just more exposed to more people. So just by order of numbers, we're happen to be exposed to more people that are dishonorable.
I do feel like we've wandered pretty far away from the topic, or maybe I'm just having difficulty following. That might just be me.
Like, oh yeah, how do you
We agree
maintain
with you.
honor?
So
Yeah.
recenter us. Recenter us, Ben. So bring us back to the conversation.
Oh, no, that's fine. Anand, I see you've joined. Did you have something you wanted to say about honor?
I have a question. So this is a question for all of you.
Oh,
Not
no.
Anand came with his question and just disappeared.
It's that's the question in itself, right?
It's inscrutable.
He pulled a Houdini on us.
Oh man, tell you what.
Yeah.
Uh,
Where do you get that
Yeah.
in?
so while we wait for Anand to come in, if we have
Okay,
exhausted
here's
this
something
topic,
good about
How
not
much
having an
time do
honor
we have
culture.
on this? Let's talk about honoring veterans. I was in the American part of veteran thing. Let's go back to honor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Should
I had a question. I
American
don't know how I
veterans or
dropped off.
I'm sorry.
But Charles, when you're talking about morally bankrupt, are you referring to the sharp increase in per capita crime?
that's part of it. Just people just being basically shitty, people being worse off than
oh dear.
doing things that are morally questionable, things that Yeah, that should be part of it.
Okay, so let's ask this question then. I wanted to ask this of Ada and Asta since they live in the UK. But why has crime in the UK increased more than tenfold per capita? And why is it that someone of African ancestry is 24 times as likely to be killed as someone with
Is the
English ancestry?
subject of the show honor?
Well, I would.
Honestly, is there honor in statistics? I don't think you want to go there.
No, there's lies, there's there's statistics.
I will
So I don't
take
think
them out.
so.
Is there
Stanley
an
is bringing out the big guns now. Is there honor in statistics?
No, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm full of shit, of course. Y'all think I'm full of shit.
That was really funny,
but I do
Stanley.
listen to people.
That was funny. I appreciated that.
Funny.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
okay, I want to just toss this out there. I want to.
truisms in comedy.
I just wanted to toss
Yeah,
out there
sure.
that one thing that's not good about honor culture is the cycles of violence that you get with a culture that is fixated on honor as being like the most important value. You know, I would say that there is a point at which
would be
honor becomes bad.
Isaac with a knife, called by God. Christians had that same honor culture. We just got Western culture to make us forget.
Yeah, well,
How? Explain that. How?
I'm not a biblical scholar. I'm going to be better than Jordan Peterson and say I don't have the details.
But you just made an assertion. You just made a claim, and
Tell me
there,
I'm wrong with that point.
you're
But-
wrong.
Is my
Has
point
been thrown,
wrong?
JP.
You're supposed to prove your point. I'm
Okay,
not the one that's
Mr.
going to
Colonel.
refute the point that you haven't
Okay,
proved.
let's go back to the obvious. Honor culture is not doing stuff you shouldn't do. I think my point was honor culture is not necessarily, you can take it to the edge, but then we're done. Everyone understands. And if you need me to do the research, Charles, of course, but I thought it was common reference.
All right, do the research. Okay, let's go to a culture like the Japanese culture that was so big on honor. I remember that there was this Japanese soldier that was still in the bushes um fighting
40
World War II for 40 years, even when the war had ended. And uh, in one instance, when the war ended, some Japanese soldiers preferred to just commit suicide rather than than to give up, or rather than to surrender, because they felt it was a dishonorable thing. And even till today, I've heard that there are certain cases where Asian kids kill themselves when they don't get certain results, when their results are poor, and because they think it is the theme of shame and brings shame to them, and they just kill themselves. So let's talk about maybe that's some of the negative aspects of a very
yeah,
strong honor culture.
I would like to also add that Japan has some of the lowest crime rates in the entire world.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about
Yeah.
suicide rates?
Yeah, but Japan, they still have a high suicide. I mean, I don't know they're great statistically, but I know they have a whole force where people just go in and kill themselves. I know they're known for it. I don't know the exact stats, but they're famous for suicide.
Yeah, like I remember this is a South Korean, I think, educational minister or something like that, and they were like, because South Korean like education test scores are like some of the highest into the world, but they said like we kind of don't really want this because their suicide rate for high school students was so high, and they knew that like we have to fix this. Like this is not worth the cost of having really high test scores if how many kids are so miserable, because they actually have to have guards on the roofs of the schools during test time so that like, you know, if in the middle of the like, because, you know, tests can last all day, right? And so if they think that they're halfway through the day they're doing really poorly, some kids will just go straight to the roof and jump off, right? So they have to have guards to help prevent that. But it was very, so this is kind of going into kind of like a little different direction, but like I think there are certain phenomenon of like certain populations that are just never really going to fit in all cultures, but based on the culture they do different things with that population, but that population is going to kind of stay the same. And so like, because like there's like the hikikomori, I think I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong, but those are like the Japanese shut-ins. Like they don't commit suicide, but they just literally shut themselves off from the world. And, you know, and I think they have around like, there's a certain percentage of those men, is typically men who do that. And, you know, people are saying, well, this is just purely a Japanese concept. But then the Japanese researcher, he actually looked at, I think, Italy. He looked at Western countries and he said, like, no, there's the same portion of men that are also pushed out of society. They just become homeless. So in terms of in Japan, the parents just let them stay in the basement for forever because it's easier to have them not go out into the streets. But in Western countries, they're also cut out of society, but they just go out onto the streets. So it's the same like level of displaced men who don't fit in, but it's just based on the country. They just go, they're just put in different places.
Yeah, I mean that's very interesting, and I totally understand what you're saying, right? But I want to go back to the honor stuff. Like, you see, we call the Japanese Bushido culture, whatever, honor, but to me, I consider that more a pride culture because it's pride, like because that's very egotistical to think that you have to kill yourself just to save face. That right there is very prideful to me. It's like and one thing I understand about humans, I think all humans are extremely prideful, right? I really believe that egomania is natural to humans, right? I believe egomania is actually natural, and that's why we make religions and everything to subdue our egomania. Because I think if we didn't have some type of like higher power or something that we look up to, we'll just go. I think all of us will sort of go crazy with egomania in a way, because if you think it's just your life and this all this stuff, that it's easy to say, okay, I failed the test, I got to kill myself. You know what I'm saying? So so basically, we have to look when we look at honor, we have to look at human identity and how we look at ourselves. And that's why I said honor is internal. That's why I was really saying that honor to me is responsibility to reality and is an internal reflection, because even if you look at people have different codes of honor, like the Japanese, is internal reflection. I think their internal reflection is bad, that you have to kill yourself, or your internal reflection is bad, you have to shut yourself in, or it's bad that you can't work and make a life of yourself, even if you don't agree with everybody. Because a lot of people, even me, a lot of times I feel. Even me, I think I'm very unique, right? Like a lot of people, I don't necessarily agree with people and other stuff. But sometimes you got to be able to agree to disagree and live with people. Just because not everybody's the same as you doesn't mean you have to withdraw from society, because not everybody believes the exact same thing you believe about every single thing. Like you got to be able to live with adversity and live with opposition. And our main problem now is developing the better coping skills. Even in a more evolving world with higher connectivity, we need more and more social skills. I mean, I think the conversation should switch to I think we should redefine or remake honor into a matter of skill, and acquisition to do the things that best reflect a healthy way of being to society. And when I mean health, I mean plain dealing. The same way we say honor before is like, if we learn how to deal with each other in a transparent and a healthy way, we can have a true honor society that actually benefits everybody and does not make marginalized people, except if you want to be marginalized because you want to be fall into criminality. Yeah, of course, yes, we go. Some people are going to be made marginal, but I think if we have the proper value systems and the proper judgments, we'll marginalize the right people. I think some people need to be marginalized, But why are people just falling through the cracks just to fall through the cracks if it's not a pride thing in themselves? And what are we doing to build a culture that people have the capacity to live better lives and not self defeat themselves? Thank you.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. And to add on to that, I think the biggest, like, so getting back to the topic of like, how do you stay honorable in a dishonorable world, is the thing is like, you have to be able to do the right thing when it's easier to do the wrong thing, because it's very easy to do the right thing when that's really the only option, or that's the easy thing to do. But like, when you're given a choice of, it's my life in the immediate, my life is a lot easier if I do the wrong thing, because I get to avoid all of these other things. But you have to be able to, harden yourself to face adversity to do the right thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I wanted to circle back to that point that you made about Japanese students killing themselves, Korean students killing themselves. I don't know if you guys remember Eidos. That Black Skin is Amazing. The first guy that I had a debate with on the channel. So there was one stream I went to his channel to do where we talked about the school performance of African Americans and all that. So by the end of the stream, I told him that, look, if the cost of increasing African American test scores is going to be for these kids to start killing themselves in suicide, then I don't think that's a cost that we should want to bear. You understand? Life is much more than getting high test scores or coming out at the top of the educational rung. So there is something that has to be done about that sort of culture in itself, where you want to succeed at all costs, and failure is not an option. The only other option from when you fail is just to kill yourself, and it doesn't make any sense.
Oh yeah, I want to add to that. We got to understand, what is failure. Like, what is failure? What is success? Like, who defines what failure is? Who defines what success is?
People define what people can say their metric for what failure and what success is. If, for example, the metric for yourself is, say, I need to get all A's in my exam and my test scores, and then you get a B, you might think you failed.
Yeah, I did cry
but
once.
I think you failed, and some other person gets that B and is happy about
it. Yeah, once I was on the AB honor roll and I cried because I knew I got a B. Yeah, I think like another big factor is, I guess, getting back to the culture thing, like some cultures have, and not so much in American culture, but there is a lot of more rigid definition of what success is. Like, like your parents literally tell you, I expect you to get these grades. I expect you to study this hard. I expect to see this result. Less so much happens in American schools or for American parents, because like I think this is the benefit of America, is like it's the land of the free. You can define what you want to call success. Some people say, like, I want to be a concert violinist. Someone can say, like, I want to be a great mechanic. Someone else can say, I want to be like, like some people, like now a lot of kids saying, I want to be famous. And how you be famous is, there are so many ways just to be famous. So like, even if someone just wants to be that, like, there are so many, like, you can music, like acting, comedy, being a controversial figure on YouTube, like so many different ways. And so there's not one definition of success that we can kind of feel bad about, because even if you try to do something and you fail, you can fail in a unique way that you can just pivot into something else and carve your own way of being successful. But in other cultures, in which I think, from what I understand, in Asian cultures, it's conformity is valued more than standing out and being more individualistic. I think it can be a little bit more of a pressure, because it's not just in their head of what they think is a failure. They kind of have the sense that they know that other people will consider them a failure, and they cannot deal with that social stigma of people seeing them as a failure.
Yeah.
FYI,
so
in Japan,
okay, go ahead,
honor doesn't lead to a lot of violence. People work it out. So honor doesn't have to lead to violence, but of course there are aspects to honor.
I think that honor has to intersect with a personal character. You know, you can live in a society that values honor, but not actually have the personal character that makes you a good person. And then you haven't actually created a culture of honor. You've just created a culture where there are certain incentive structures that make people act a certain kind of way, and not because they're actually people who would have made the world like that or made their culture like that if it wasn't for the fact that it was already kind of laid out for them in that way. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, it does, and I think, see, that's why I think honor has to be in education more than anything. Like that's why sometimes I think sometimes that's why sometimes I'd rather use the word virtue. Like we like need a virtue culture, and like where people learn to to be to have fortitude, to have prudence, to have to have temperance, to have what's the other cardinal virtue? Prudence, temperance, courage, patience, oh whatever the virtues are. But yeah, but we need to educate people because see I think the problem in those countries like Japan I hate to keep going to Japan. I'm just using that as just as a case study and I know I'm talking in a very stereotypical manner, right? But like coaches like that, they might think they're educated, but I don't think they're really that educated, because if you're that educated you should know not to kill yourself or because you failed a test. So I really think they're not as I think they don't have a true education. They have like you might I mean I think we need a true, I mean, for lack of better words, I know a lot of people say emotional intelligence. I don't really like that term, but I'm gonna use it 'cause a lot of people say it. We need like that type of education, or an education on your psychology and your emotions and your feelings to teach you how to properly express yourself, because it's a lack of expression that's causing people to reflect back and destroy their own selves. And I think we need to be better educated on those things. Thank you.
I definitely agree, but I think that that's something that families should do, because I don't trust schools to do it. Like I've heard of like there's like emotional social learning. I think that's what it's called, but the way that it's being implemented, I don't agree with, because it's requiring students to write out their feelings as they're doing math, which I think that's a bit too much. So I think in the appropriate place of where that education is done, I think it's great, but I think there's some avenues in which I don't think it's appropriate.
Nah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, yeah. If it's like that, if it's like a social engineering project, but then again, everything is social engineering. No matter how you slice it, every education is social engineering. If you're educating in social engineering, so in my humble opinion, all the time, because because every teaching can sometimes be considered indoctrination. Unless I mean, is there such thing as perfectly objective teaching? Maybe there might be perfectly objective teaching.
I
There
don't.
might be.
Science in science and maths, isn't it objective?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Might
per
be.
that yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, we could put the science, and you could put STEM as objective, right? But then you still need a social education. You still need okay,
Yeah.
that's a better word than emotional. Social. You still need a social education. Yeah, yeah. You might know math and science, but if you don't have a social education, you're killing yourself in the forest in Japan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But
we need a social education. Yeah. But I hear you saying about families, but then again, a nation is itself as a family too, and humans are family. So no matter how you slice it, family never really stops at home. It never
yeah,
stops with your mom
yeah.
and dad.
I think it's still I think it should start with your mom and dad and then open up in the community and everything like that. And I'm not saying schools and teachers aren't a part of that, but I think that I think it's easy. It's from what at least what I'm seeing, or at least the statistics for American students, um, for American youth, like they're less social. They're just less social to begin with. They are supplementing a lot of these social interactions with online interactions, which I don't think that grows that part of their brain. And so like, you know, there are fewer play times, like for us, for a kid to play with another kid, it's not like they can go to the park anymore, which they would learn from that. They would learn to be more social by playing with other kids. But now all of their interactions are being monitored. Like they have to have play dates. So they can't necessarily learn how to resolve a conflict where they don't have to, you know, rely on an authority to solve their conflict. And when you're a kid and you have to figure out conflict with another kid, you're learning something, and you're learning to be more social, and you're going to be more, like, yeah, socially intelligent, like you said, Pelu, and grow from that, instead of just always expecting a higher authority to mediate all conflicts. And that's not always going to be the case. And then when adults grow up in that type of context, they're going to be very frustrated that someone isn't coming down to fix their issue. And so I think that it's, you know, it's part of like letting kids be kids, but like it's a balance, right? And I think that, you know, you should let kids, you know, practice their social skills by letting them be social with each other without too much interference. And then parents should help for pro-social behaviors. Kids should, you know, interact with neighbors and then teachers and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think that it should be a specific class. Like I think that social behavior cannot specifically be taught. Like you can't sit in a chair and have, like, you know, a slide presentation saying, be nice to your friend. These are ways you can be nice. Like that's not how humans learn social behavior.
Like, I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think people do. I think people do learn social behavior, right? I think a lot of people learn it. Okay. A lot of people learn it.
I'm saying they don't learn it from a slide presentation. They don't learn it from.
But that's not the only way you learn in school. Okay. Yeah. But this slide presentations 100 years ago in schools, but they had schools, right? They had schools 100 years ago, but it wasn't slide presentation.
I never said that they don't learn it. I'm saying they don't learn it in a traditional classroom setting. Like
what's traditional? And like, for example, 100 years ago, they went to class and they learned the classical. Like, for example, they used to call it the classical education, where you go learn the classics and you learn that and you learn virtues and you learn that stuff. So I mean,
they don't have like what I'm saying is, you know, by going to school with other people, you are learning to be social, even though they're not specifically teaching you how to be social or teaching you social skills.
They teach you social skills. They teach you. I mean.
I know, but like here's what I'm saying. Right? Is like for people who are on the autistic spectrum, they know that other people learn social skills through other means, because an autistic person going through the whole education system does not have the same level of social skills as other people. Why? Because they realize that other people are learning social skills through interaction, and that is a piece that an autistic person is missing, and they have to manually learn those things in a way that other neurotypical people don't have to. Actually, they automatically kind of absorb it in those ways. And so that's what I'm saying is, like, no one had to go to a class to say, this is how you look someone in the eye, kids. This is how you, wait, like someone says something, then you say something, like very, very basic social skills.
Now people learn that in schools. Okay.
I know. I mean, I'm talking about very, very basic.
I know, and I'm trying to answer you 1,000 times. You never let me talk, Lo. You never let me rebuttal. You never give me rebuttal. I've been trying to say it 1,000 times, but I can't let you go. Let me jump in. The reason why I'm saying is because a lot of people learn this from. Even if they don't learn it in public school, they might learn it at Sunday schools. They might, if you go to Sunday schools or religious schools, they definitely teach you all this stuff. And even if you didn't, it was some type of cultural education. And I think if you have classical cultural educations in different venues, it makes you develop faster. It makes you learn these things because it's like people have been teaching virtues since the beginning of time. They've been teaching virtues. They've been teaching behavior. They've been teaching etiquette. Etiquette is just not, etiquette is something that is taught too. That's why we have religions. This is why I bet you most people here probably because most people who have kids usually come from a more religious family because more likely than not, unless your parents were total atheists, you went to some type of Sunday school or some type of moral education. Unless your parents, okay. Matter of fact, I even knew a girl who was parents were atheists, and they still went to some thing called the Ethical Human Society. She told me, yeah, my family went to some Ethical Human Society, and we learned ethical humanism in we had ethical human Sunday school. So people make institutions to teach people cultural, social education all the time, and people have been doing it all the time. Even atheists have done it all the time.
We were talking
Even
about two
communists
different
doing it.
things. We were talking about two different things. I was talking about something else. I wasn't talking about going to school to learn virtues. I was literally talking about like basic human, like looking people in the eye when they talk to you.
Yeah, but you learn that there too. You learn things in different venues. It's way ways to learn.
I mean, no, like no teacher ever told me to look them in the eye when I talk to them. No one ever taught me that.
I never learned to look people in the eye. In my culture, people didn't look people in the eye. So I never still look people in the eye.
I know.
So
like,
I never learned that ever. I never to this day I don't look people in the eye.
I know, like my point is like when I was talking about just basic social type of stuff, like social behaviors or reading people's emotions or that kind of stuff. Like as a kid, you don't go to a class to read people, understand how to read people's emotions. And I think that most kids don't need that, because that's how kids you actually should learn, is by kind of interacting with people and doing it. Although there is, I have seen, because of the pandemic and wearing masks, more kids are having developmental issues because they can't read people's facial expressions in schools. And so, like, at least that's kind of basically what I was talking
Really?
about. Like,
so the only difference,
Chloe, really?
Yeah, like
that's happening.
Yeah,
I mean, COVID is just 2 years, and that's affecting kids' development already. How true is that?
It's I think like especially like like young children, right? Like there are more kids who are having like I think auditory issues, because when someone's talking to them, they can't see their mouth move.
Standing in the back saying virtues parents not school. Man, Stanley, you told me you went to Catholic school your whole life, so I know they'll teach you virtues in Catholic school. Don't come here and fake, because I mean, if you went to Catholic school your whole life, they were teaching you virtues in your school. So don't tell me that virtue is not, as parents, not school, when they definitely taught you that every single day you were school for 16 years, whatever years you were in school.
Like the Beatitudes, like
I'm about to say you're making up stories now. See, and that's what I'm saying. Okay, like what do you say, Chloe? Everybody learns socially just regularly, but that's just an autistic particular thing. Because look, matter of fact, okay, for a long time I worked with people who had developmental disabilities, and they read people. Even maybe autistic people did it, but even retarded people could read your emotions and read your stuff. Even mental retard. And I know this because I actually I took care of retarded men for a long time. So I actually know what I'm talking about. I'm not saying this out of nowhere. I actually, that was my job for a long time, taking care of retarded men. Right. So what you're saying is particularly to a certain developmental disability, autism. That's the only example of what you're saying in the world.
So no, like the thing is, I'm saying of like, still like this is how human children learn these behaviors, like learn basic social stuff, right? Like, and so I'm saying is like, as we get into a world where kids are being more disconnected, where they don't get to practice those social behaviors and being in natural environments where they can build up those skills, I think those skills are just going to get worse. They're going to end up like autistic people.
I don't think they are, because they'll develop skills to read their parents. They'll still read stuff. It'll be different environments. It's like it's like they'll still develop. They might just develop differently in different ways, but
it's like I don't know. It's just I see some of these Gen Z stuff, and I'm like,
man, I see some of these old people my age don't know how to act. What you mean? Old people my age don't know how to talk. I mean, people 30 years old don't know how to talk to each other. What you mean? I mean, I see people in my 30s, my age, who can't have a regular conversation. 30-year-olds in their 30s. I see people in the 40s can't have a regular conversation. I really don't. I think they overblowing the time gaps and everything like that, because it's like I don't know. I mean, I don't think the youth now is going to be worse than how they are, because the people now, even to this day, 30-year-olds can't have a conversation. I know very few people who could really sit and have a conversation, except if it's basketball or something that doesn't take any type of thought process or thing like that. But that's not. I mean, it's not necessarily a hovering parent thing, you know, because even 30-year-olds are with it. Even the 40-year-olds are triggered now. 60-year-olds who grew up in the time are triggered. 60-year-olds.
Well,
I see 60-year-olds triggered now. I don't mean
I think
60-year-olds.
I
You
think
can't
there.
talk to a 60-year-old.
Yeah, Neil Young. Did you guys hear of Neil Young, who said he
Oh
was
yeah,
going to leave
yeah.
Spotify because of Joe
Yeah.
Rogan?
That didn't work out for him
No,
at
for real,
all.
that's how people are. So it's not necessarily is.
Yeah,
So I don't buy that
it's
the scenario is this new parenting and all this stuff. Nah, it's not. It's not I mean, it's more to it than that. Anyway, go, Chloe. I know you want to talk.
all I said is just check out TikTok.
I don't know. I
think
don't use
that I
TikTok.
think that
I know
I think
it's
that
the best.
Dev is
X
here.
and
Let's.
millennials. I think that Gen X and millennials have unwittingly conspired to create the most conservative backlash, like,
Yeah,
generation that's on its way. Like, because even I think young people are just like, what the hell? Like, you guys are supposed to know what the hell's going on, and you're being crazy. Like, I honestly think that, yes, we hear that a lot of the young people are, becoming woke and stuff like that. But there's people who are even younger than a lot of those people who are looking and just like, nuh-uh. Like, that's weird. That's stupid. I
Hey,
really, really
hey,
hope. I really, really hope
hey.
that it continues in that vein.
Hey, yeah, that's true too. And I want to go back to study in side check. I said retarded. Okay, you understand? It was the official medical designation. I used to have the paperwork. I used to have to make their paperwork and their IPs, whatever. The paperwork said severe mental retardation. That's what it said on the paperwork. Mild mental retardation. So I know what I'm talking about. They
it
didn't
is.
change the
It is
law
a
Yeah.
to
medical term.
2019 and it changed it to intellectual disability. They changed the law in 2019. And I was working there before 2000. Not 2000. I'm sorry, 2019, 2009. Yeah, 2009. That's when they changed the
Yeah.
law in 2009 to change it. But all the paperwork still said. As a matter of fact, the agency I was working for was called Association of Retarded Citizens. So what you talking? So that's what the terminology was. They still use the art. They use it. It's like so please. So I'm using the medically the actual term that was actually used in the legal paperwork. And when I was working those jobs at those
Yeah,
Yeah,
times.
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
let's get Dev in. Dev, jump into the conversation.
Hi, Chloe. Hi,
I don't know
Ben.
how
Hi,
much.
okay.
Mr.
All
Palu.
right,
Oh,
Dev.
good.
How's everybody doing?
Very
Oh,
well.
fine.
Yeah, I've been listening a little bit, and maybe I think huh, education on a whole, yeah. What you learn in the classroom don't necessarily plays out in real life. Now, example, my mom. I could know when she's up to something, looking at her expression. Yeah, I know when I'm about to get a whooping because she put on a different emotion than what than a normal one of a calm one. So I know something is wrong. Now you go to school and they taught you different ways of behaving because it's in the curriculum. What they say, controlling behaviors. Now, my issue with that is, aren't we supposed to explore and be creative and, find our own path? Somewhat when we were growing up, we used to communicate in our own language, but we totally understand each other. We didn't feel like we was, you know, talking out of language or anything. But then when you get to a certain stage in life or go to a certain institution, you have to speak in a certain way, behave in a certain manner because you'll be ostracized and, oh no, you are speaking broken this or whatever the case. The point I'm making is, aren't we supposed to be creative beings where we can understand each other as best as
Hey,
possible?
I totally agree with you, Mr. Dev. I totally agree with that. I totally agree. I understand what you're saying, and that's exactly the issue. That's exactly the point. And you said it. You said it real well. I mean, with new challenges takes new creativity. It was always, and that's what moves society forward. I mean, I don't think nothing's new under the sun in terms of this conversation. Really, it's just the tactics will have to be more creative for the new technologies that we use. We have to be more creative in adapting our social conditions to match our physical conditions and our technological conditions. Thank you.
With the new
Yeah.
technology, new how creative. Is that really being creative? Is it really being creative with the new technology? Because to me, everything just plays there for you. You just
No, I mean,
put it
look.
where
Right
it's
now, we're being
supposed to be.
we're being creative. Right now, this is creativity.
Yeah, I
We're
agree
just
with
talking.
you.
We're randomly on people's phones or laptops or whatever, and we're having a whole video conference slash TV like talk show at the same time. That's creative to me. I mean, before you can do that, before could you just have a talk show, that anybody in the world could watch around the world, and different people from different countries are just speaking to each other, and we still it's creative. It's creative. We created. This is a creative use of technology. What we're doing right now is a creative use of technology.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So great conversation so far. We're still on it. Although we've taken some detours to other areas, but I think it's still relevant to what we're trying to say today about honor and about. But one thing I would say about human beings is that I believe that human beings are very are very adaptable, and we can look for new ways to learn things, to learn new, you know, to learn the behaviors that are suitable within the world or the culture that we find ourselves in. Even though there might be this with the rise of social media, with the internet and all that, people are distancing themselves. But even though we're distancing ourselves physically, people are still finding ways to connect. And it might just be that the internet is the new way of socializing. For example, all of us here, we are socializing somehow. We're talking with each other. We're building relationships. We're building connections. And these are things that we in the time past we could have built with people that we saw physically, people that were within our environment. You understand? So I'm just thinking that probably this is another phase in the evolution of humanity where our connection is much more virtual, but is not it isn't any less real than the ones that we used to have as in the past. So what do you guys think about that?
Say it one more time. Like, make it a little bit more clear. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be like that, but I just didn't fully catch it. I didn't fully understand exactly
Okay.
the point.
Okay, so my point is I think that humans have the ability to adapt to their current conditions. Now, some people see the rise of the internet, social media as a problem going forward for human relationships and human interactions because more people are on their smartphones, more people are on the internet, and people are losing connections, physical connections. You get. But I'm saying that because of the way the world is set up currently, we have evolved to now build more of our connections virtually. Like what we're doing now, we're making connections with each other. Yeah, we're making friendships, we're having a conversation, and this is something that in time past we would just do with people around us in our environment, but now we're doing it over the internet. So I'm saying that, what do you think about that? Is this the new way going forward? Is it acceptable? Is it not a problem to say people not making connections with those physically around them are now making connections over the internet? Is this the new reality? And would it be just as good as it was in the time past? That's the point I was trying to get across.
I think the cat's out of the bag. Like, there's no way anyone's going to go back. And I think that we just kind of, the technology is evolving so fast that it might take us a while to catch up because, if you look at all of the scientific progress, it's all bunched up like, so many new revolutions of like just basic communication have happened in the past like 200 years. And just when we get like, oh, now everyone gets cell phone and now everyone can post all of their thoughts and Twitter and all these types of things, all these different modes of communication. But I think that we need to eventually we need to like catch up to the fact of like how we're going to teach younger kids. Like like when I grew up in school, like I never had a social media class because that wasn't a big enough thing for it to be considered as to like teach kids. We know in person like stranger danger of like don't talk to strangers, but suddenly now you're online, no one knows really who you are. You can claim to be any age that you want, and now you're interacting with strangers all the time. And they may like, we need to learn new rules of stranger danger of like, don't tell people where you live. I think there was like a YouTube show where that's what a guy did. He paired up with children's parents, talked to like got permission from the parents to talk to their kids, and he basically successfully lured out a lot of these kids to go to the park and as an adult man. And basically like the cameras would come out and the parents would chastise the kids like, I can't believe you actually did this. But like those are things we now need to teach kids that we hadn't really thought that we needed to teach them before. But like it's like we as humans, we adapt to new environments, and this is just something else that we need to adapt to. It just might need to accelerate that turnaround.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like to piggyback on that. Yeah. I mean, we've always had similar issues. You know what I'm saying? Don't talk to strangers. Don't do that. Don't go in people's cars. I remember back in the 90s. Yeah, don't go in people's cars. Don't. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we have to like update something that we've known for a long time. You know what I'm saying? It just is obviously it's different in terms of just technology, but the same phenomenon happened. Like people were getting kidnapped even in ancient Rome. Probably, I keep going back to ancient Rome only because that's I know that was a mega city that was even 2,000 years ago. They still had a mega city, and things probably still happen. So that's why I keep using that same example, right? But like other things like for example, we might socialize digitally, but you can still meet the people that you socialize digitally online. Like one of the first things I used to do when I first started on social media, I used to go to meetups. Right, it was called meetup.com. But you just the people that you meet up online, you meet them in person too. You all meet up at a cafe and talk this and that and that and it worked. Okay, even today, I met up with Imam Alfred today. I met up with him today. So I might have met him online, right? But he came down to DC and I met up with him today. So it to me it's just one tool to meet up with people. Like there was always different tools before, different networks. You know what I'm saying? So we just have an opportunity to network even more online than we had before. Because but the same people that but human. Because I mean I don't think internet restricts human to human relationships. I think it's an added benefit to human to human relationships because you can meet more people from more places and you can meet up for more people in more places than before. It's just more connectivity, and I think the more connectivity, the better, really.
Right. I also think that like we also have to know how to handle all of these extra options, right? Like an infinite amount of options might lead to decision paralysis. And so I think we still need to make these connections intentionally instead of just letting the technology take us wherever it wants to go, like with the algorithm and how people go into doom scroll. We need to be more intentional with this technology.
What's doom scroll? What does that mean when you go to doom scroll?
Oh, like when like on Facebook, they just keep scrolling, like because it's an infinite scroll, it doesn't stop. And so
somebody so idle, they're gonna keep scrolling forever and ever and ever until they waste all the time in the day. So that happens. People
does.
Until the day of judgment.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed what you find out.
Oh no, I don't know. I'm
It
not idle like
happens.
that. I don't know. I don't know idle people like that. I don't do idle stuff. So I got things to do in my life. I don't even use Facebook, so I don't even know what it is to be scrolling. The only reason I use a Facebook is because my cousin made me a Facebook page, and I found you could call people on Facebook in Africa. So I started calling my family in Africa on the Facebook Messenger thing. That's usually when I had that.
The thing is that I know more people who are terminally online, and I see where you're coming from,
Terminally online.
but these people, I did not make up this term. But
Shitwell
like
stories.
I've known these people who are just online way too much, and their brain is different. And this is kind of that partially informs like what I'm saying, because I see these people as like different. And I have met these people in real life, and it's just really interesting. Of like, they are kind of isolated to a point where like, oh, this is crazy, right? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, because they are kind of less connected to reality, and the types of things that they feel like, they get too involved in their feelings and emotions, and because they surround themselves with a bubble, they end up saying things that maybe can get the FBI come to their door, because they don't have very many natural limiters of like, did you try saying this out loud? And actually realize that it's incredibly stupid, but they just post it because they don't have as much of a filter, and they continuously get banned from Twitter.
No, just to pick up on what you're saying, there's some people literally lives on the internet. I mean, like live on the internet. They don't leave their house. Their whole world is on the internet. So this internet thing is good and it's bad in a sense that, for example, look, you have to strike a balance. You have to know that, look, your life don't revolve around on the internet. You also have a natural life. And I think what is happening is that this internet thing becoming addicted to a lot of people whereby they can't get off of it. If you go look at some videos, people walking into drains, you pass through tongue and everybody head bend down. I don't know how they don't get home back. And I'm saying, when are you going to switch off and deal with your things around you? Everything is situated now on the internet. People don't visit one another no more as they used to. People don't have face-to-face conversation no more. My neighbor who live not too far from me, everything is we go talk on the internet, we go talk on Facebook. And it's like you're only 2 steps away. What is that? So I'm saying we're losing the human touch physically and slowly gravitating to going behind a screen. And don't get me wrong, it's had its good as well as it's bad. But I'm saying the interaction physically, face to face, I think it's more effective, in my view, than being on behind a glass trying to pretend sometimes who you're not. Because some people create some worlds on the internet that they never could be in person. You can even buy properties on the internet that you will never own physically. And I was like, I'm talking about millions of dollars.
Yeah,
I was
don't get
like,
me started on the metaverse. That's a
yeah, it's like,
scam.
how stupid is that? You were spending millions of dollars for properties online that you will never have. Seriously? Come on, somebody need a head examine.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. Everything you said, basically, I totally.
It's a shame. You have to know when to put it down and know that you have a physical life that you cannot run from.
So I'd like to just say that it's kind of like relying on one tool too much, right? So you've
Yes.
heard the proverb of, if all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Yes.
Um, you know, or worse yet, the other one being a hammer in search of a nail, just a person who's constantly kind of, yeah. But I think that the thing that I'm trying to get at though is that like we have to be very conscientious about our relationships with people. In real life is always going to be one of the tools that we use. We can use the computers as tools. We can interface with them with other people through them. But in the end, we always need to be able to enjoy and be around one another. Otherwise, you get things like eventually we see that like the Sentinelese people, for example, being off on an island for so long, eventually when they do get into contact with someone else, they might die. You know,
Yes.
due
No,
to
cereal.
some pathogen. Yeah.
There's cereal in front of TV. Sorry.
Oh, you're
Sorry,
fine.
Ben. Go ahead.
No. But yeah. So anyway, no, I agree with you. It's the same thing when you take a value like honor and you make it more important than everything else.
Yeah.
You know, then you end up with a bunch of people fighting over honor for, you know, years and years and years. So much pointless bloodshed, so much so many lives lost, and so much time lost when you could have been friends, but
Yeah.
instead you were busy fighting.
Yeah, welcome, Brad. Join the conversation, Brad.
Greetings, everybody. So happy to be here. Loving what,
Yeah.
loving the course of this discussion. Really enjoying what Deb and Ben, especially you just talked about how honor can go too far and can drive wedges. There are honor killings. Differentiating between honor and shame can get so difficult. And I was particularly struck with Deb when you said like we don't know how to put the internet down, and I think that's true. And I'll draw an analogy to fast food. Like we, especially Americans, and I could generalize that a little bit and say mostly Western countries, we don't know when to put down the fast food. We don't know when to put down tacos. We don't know when to put down Coke. It's like our bodies don't know when they're satisfied. We don't know when we're satiated, and so we just continue to consume and consume. And evolutionary biologists have offered the explanation that it's because we've existed for hundreds of thousands of years in a state of starvation, and so our genes don't have a shutoff. Really, we can override our full pretty easily, but we're kind of like goldfish. We'll just keep consuming. And I think with the creation of the internet and social media, that kind of just puts oxygen on the fire, and we haven't learned how to it's like we need a new hierarchy of values. Parents need to be able to model, not just tell, but model with their own behavior how to put the screens down. I'm a dad of two young boys, 5 and 7, and it's so difficult. But I think honor is. I agree with what Chloe said earlier, and I think Mr. Pelou, you're talking about honor needs to be like it begins in the home, it begins in the community, and those are some of my thoughts. So thank you. Happy to be here.
Good point.
Yeah. Thank you, Brad.
Don't you know that a young boy literally cuff his mother down because she takes the phone away from him as a punishment? Yeah, literally cuff her down, and I'm talking about in the street. So you see how when you're so entrenched in these things and so addicted to it, it becomes your life, and anybody go against it literally threatens your life. So you think you have to defend it physically or however. We have to know when to strike a balance.
I perfectly agree.
Yeah, Steve is back. So Steve, jump in.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, cool, man. What's up,
Great.
Steve?
Hey,
Sorry,
Steve.
man. I got off work early, so I thought I'd hop
Hey,
in since
kudos.
my mic doesn't work.
That's good.
So, really quick, Charles, I just wanted to say that I was in the chat and I was watching that conversation going on with Asta, and I just want to say and I can't speak for critical African thinkers, but I've been around long enough to know that we don't silence people using privilege. Everybody gets an opportunity to speak, and I've never seen that ever be any other way than with Charles. Charles has been great. He lets everyone speak. Everyone's allowed to share their opinion. If it's a bad idea or it's a bad opinion, we'll shoot that shit down because we honor and respect freedom of speech.
Charles,
We
I'll
don't
give you a
silence
medal
people.
when we finish.
Continue, so you're just being funny. Sorry, Steve.
No, you're okay. I'm done.
Oh, so Charles, expect a medal from me.
No.
I'll
No?
hold you to that.
Oh
I'll
Lord,
hold you
no.
to that.
I'm joking. I
So I expect to get my medal.
didn't realize you was going to
So
take the bait.
yeah, so
Sorry.
what Steve was talking about, Lamar in the comments and all that conversation. So Lamar, this is the open
That was good.
platform. You see that I didn't try to shut what you were saying. Everybody has a right to say what they want to say. So if you want to call into the show, just let me know, and I'll
I'll
drop
be
the link
happy to
for you.
jump off.
Nice click.
But no, where we don't do accusations of white supremacy, racism, and all that. Everybody has their opinions. If you think someone is racist, good and fine, but you have to be able to prove your point. If you think someone is racist, then you have to be able to prove your point. But racism and white privileges in the conversation today, we're just talking about honor, and this is something that can apply across all cultures, across all human beings, white, black, Asian, what have you. Yeah, so that's it. So let's continue the conversation. And by the way, the super chat feature is on. So if anyone wants to support the stream, you can make good use of it. There's a dollar sign by the right side of the chat box. Yeah. So go ahead, Dev.
Everybody should use super chat. No, I've been listening to the majority of everything that everybody's been talking about, and I can agree with everybody's perspective. Mostly. I think everybody's had really, really great points. The point that I kind of keep going back to is the definition, that the actual definition that Ben expressed earlier, and Schopenhauer's perspective on honor. And then you read any kind of really decent psychological literature, you start to get a sense that honor is a way that we can govern society as a society without having to resort to legal systems or judicial systems, so to speak. We can self-police our behavior. It's kind of like that. It takes a village to raise a child, almost, where we're able to push and pull boundaries, and the majority of society can help us form and mold our idea of what a healthy society is supposed to look like, right? Now, obviously, sometimes that goes wrong, sometimes that goes bad, especially, when people are having to die because of honor. I don't agree with that, especially, honor killings and everything that's been going on in some places and some locations. But I keep going back to the idea that, honor really is a system that has worked for a very long time. And the more and more our children are on electronics and not outside and not engaging with their peers, they are losing that ability to shape and mold their perspectives of society. And I think that can become very, very problematic, especially when you start getting into politics. Because at one time or another, politics will affect every single person. So I think it's important to start to build a healthy concept of society. So that's what I wanted to say.
Well said, Steve.
Chloe.
Yes.
Yeah. How's the cat?
He's good. He's taking a nap right now. Actually, the funny thing is about Nikki, like this whole pandemic, I haven't necessarily been worried for myself, But just the other day, I just kind of thought of like, what if he gets COVID because he already has breathing issues? And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to put a little oxygen tank on him. So that's the only thing related to the cat that's going through my head.
I'll share maybe a far out there thought. In game theory, there's something called the prisoner's dilemma, where you got two prisoners in separate rooms, and if either of them snitches on the other one, then the one who snitches gets a reduced sentence. If they both don't snitch, there's no sentence. But if they both snitch, then they both go to jail, right? So one can see how they're kind of incentivized because they're separated. They don't know what the other one's saying, and they don't have the data. They don't have shared data, and so they're perversely incentivized to snitch, which hurts them both. My one hope, well, I got a lot of hope because can be a naive optimist, but my hope is that with the internet and social media and so much information being available all the time, is that the younger generations will figure out how to navigate this. They will figure out how to quickly process, good data from bad data, good outcomes from poor outcomes. And, it's going to be very difficult to get there because we're going to play a lot of losing games of the prisoner's dilemma. But eventually we'll figure out that it does take a community to raise children. There are values which we can all agree to. We are all brothers and sisters sharing this planet that, some argue is going through some radically unpleasant changes. And, hopefully with enough failure, we'll learn that we got to get our act together and come together. So that's a hope I have.
Can I just say that I'm so happy that you brought up game theory? I love that.
Yeah, I liked that too. Thank you.
Oh, so you guys have me lost now. What's game theory? Bring me up to speed.
Well, the prisoner's dilemma is one of the it's kind of a thought. Well, it's actually a game in practice to try and figure out what the best possible outcome for all involved is. And that's kind of what game theory is in a nutshell. It's a very simple explanation for it, but game theory can get really, really complicated because it's based off of statistics, a lot of statistics, and very fast statistics. So it's just one of those things where, yeah. So, but I wanted to bounce something back that Brad said, but now I forgot what it was. So I'm going to shut up now.
All right. So, yeah.
No, I think I would definitely agree that we have to go. Yeah, this is growing pains with technology, and so we have to make quite a few mistakes before we understand how to use this technology effectively and the limits of it and where we should place it in our lives. It's good that we understanding the capacity of it and how far we can stretch it, and then so that we know, like, okay, it's best to put it in this place instead of just trying to infiltrate it into most of our lives as much as possible. We need balance.
Do you think that we would be better without these social media influences? Do you think that humans would be better off? We would still have all the technology, would have all the airplanes, would have all the other parts of, probably the internet, but maybe no Facebook, no Instagram, no Twitter, maybe WhatsApp. Do you think we'd be better off?
Ooh. I think what we failed to do with social media is to practice to basically practice oh, good grief, the word just lost oh my goodness. Oh, good
Moderation.
Moderation.
Thank you. Holy crap. Yeah, I think we failed to incorporate the practice of moderation into this growing technology that kind of came on really slow and then bam, hit us all at once. And we just didn't have the capability of dealing with it as quickly as it came up. So we couldn't really apply anything to it. And now that it's been around for a while, you're starting to see some of that change. But I think, conversations like this and some access to social media, it can be good, right? It can't, especially during the pandemic. I mean, that probably saved a lot of people's lives. Things like this, the amount of live streams and panels that went up, during the pandemic, just exploded because it was the only way people could actually see other people's faces. And humans are social creatures, even introverts, right? We're still social creatures. So in some
Yeah.
aspects, I think social media can play a positive role in our lives, but we have to practice it in moderation. Like I myself, I throttle the amount of time that I spend on social media sites aside from Discord, because Discord is a little bit different for me. But other social media sites, I don't get on Facebook anymore. I don't get on Instagram. I don't get on Twitter, except for basically to support my friends and their efforts. And I am so much happier for it. I don't have to see all the negativity. I can choose what I want to look at. And I find that incredibly exciting now that I'm not attached to this bloody phone 24/7. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the funny thing is that it's so addictive. I mean, how do you practice moderation with something that's just filling your head with dopamine? The thing you said about not being on other social media sites, yeah, that's also happened to me. For example, I don't use Instagram. My Facebook, I rarely go to Facebook nowadays. My WhatsApp messages, I have over 1,000 messages I haven't even opened or responded to. Twitter, I'm just new on Twitter, not so much with it. So it's just YouTube and Discord. But even at that, even the YouTube and Discord, I think they're taking a substantial amount of my time. And I'd really love to cut back on it, but it's just so addictive.
Well, our Discord, or I should say, Anon's Discord is so addictive, and so is yours, and so are all these other ones that we've currently started to be active with, because these are like really great intellectual like conversations. We're like learning so much so quickly, but then you'll have an occasion where you're just absolutely goofing off and acting like total clowns. So there's kind of a nice balance there, and it's not all about opinions. And that's the great thing too, is that none of us get away with having an opinion without it being justified. So it's really making us think before we open our mouths. And I find that
Yeah.
absolutely intoxicating in that sense, where I don't get that same kind of an intoxicated feeling when I'm on Facebook arguing with some moron in Alabama.
Makes a lot of sense.
Chloe.
Yeah, totally.
I hope nobody's from Alabama here.
Yeah, so I did used to I did try Twitter for a little bit, and it's not like I had negative experiences with it. I just what I did was I kept like manually rejecting the ads until I could find out what ads they would give me, and it got to the point where I got a Scandinavian political ad. And that was just kind of a game for me, and then I kind of connected it with a different project that I was I use the API to actually like post things so I can check things on a program that was running while at work, but I can never go back to Facebook because if I could, well, no, I have blocked them on there, but I don't know. I interacted with some people I never want to ever interact with again, and also all of their other friends. And I've just learned that you have to be careful. Like, you're still inviting these things into your life. Just because it's on a screen doesn't mean that you take it less seriously. It still affects you, and there can still be consequences from how you interact with other people, and even how much information you provide to people. Things still come back around. And I try to I do moderate, like, what I do share, like, even in the Discord. Like, there are certain things that I'm really into, and I'm like, this is probably not gonna, it's not even like this is not gonna go down well. It's just like crickets, right? And so I understand where I can share certain things, and if this is if this is something that it's better that I share with someone in person or someone that I work with, I would choose to privilege sharing that information as opposed to just word vomit to everyone and anyone that I interact with, because that's one thing I feel concerned about, of when people they don't learn the skill of, maybe this is for a different person, or this is for a different venue, or that's something that I think people like, it's a harsh lesson that people need to learn, but like, read the room, know your audience is something that I think a lot of people online don't even understand, and they get into a lot of trouble in that sense.
Read the room. Absolutely.
Ben, you still there?
Oh yeah, I've just been listening. Lots of really good stuff.
Yeah. And this is my refreshment. This is my my leisure. In fact, this does so much for me, because this is what interests me: talking to really smart people, discussing issues, having intellectual discussions and conversations, because somehow it just broadens your mind. It makes you to see things from a different perspective, from another angle. It makes you to analyze your position very well, and you test the validity of your position. And thank God we have Stanley to also always beat us with objections all the time. And it's a good experience. If this is what I'm spending my time on social media doing, I think it's worth it, rather than just mindless scrolling through places like Facebook or TikTok. TikTok is something that I've never gotten a hang of, and I never will. Like, never been on that side, never will be on it. And
Agree.
Yeah, screw that.
It's also a security threat.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you, Chloe,
like,
the voice of reason.
It's like, I mean, because I remember, when like when basically that security threat kind of came out, and I literally had to tell like one of my friends, say like, I know she had a teenage daughter. I'm like, so I just automatically knew that she had TikTok. So I'm like, tell your daughter to delete this now, because her husband did like classified work, and it's like, yeah, this is not good.
Well,
yeah, so we're 2 hours into this conversation now. I just want us to wrap up in the next couple of minutes. Yeah. So, Steve, you were going to say something. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was going to agree with you about Stanley, because Stanley is like one of the smartest people I know. Like, he's incredibly astute at being able to challenge your beliefs. Even if he knows nothing about what you're talking about, he can still challenge it just simply by asking questions, right? And that's what we're supposed to do. Like, we're supposed to push back on ideas and opinions. Like, who wants to be around a bunch of people that are like, "Oh, that's a great idea. That's a great idea." That's how bad ideas start and get propagated. That's
Exactly.
I don't want that. I want people to challenge me. I want people to like push, right? I want some kind of reciprocation during a conversation, not just like one-sided. You know what I mean? And I think it's important to keep people in your lives that do challenge you, even though it can oftentimes be frustrating as hell. That's a good thing. That's a very, oh, I don't know how to put it really, because I'm still in work mode, but it's almost like this. It's almost life affirming. It's like I'm alive because this thing that I'm talking about, that I'm passionate about, someone is challenging. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to defend this thing, and I need to think smart. And so that's why I spend as much time as I do on this and Discord and other stuff, is because I love the feeling of getting to know people, like getting to know them. I do not like textual formats. Like, I don't like texting. So I'd much rather sit here and talk to people than sit here on my keyboard. You know, it's just there's a benefit to actually speaking to people instead of speaking at people.
Yes, for example, like some of the stuff that's going down in the chat right now. You know, it just seems to me like Lamar has the opportunity to come on here and talk about some of the things that he's concerned with. But he'd rather not. He'd rather say other things. And I guess my thing is this, like, Lamar, this is a safe space. Like, you can come on here and you can talk and we will listen to you. But, you know, we have to be able to eat on that level. Otherwise, we can't really have a conversation.
Yeah, agree. Chloe, let's wrap this up. So, let's say your thoughts.
I think getting back to the conversation of honor, I think it's finding a good community that, you know, yeah, I think it's like, you know, you have to be in an environment and you have to be in a social environment in which you are challenged to not only profess your values and your virtues, but also you held up to the expectations to live up to them as well. And that's how, you know, you can be honorable and you can therefore be honored by your community. And so it involves both sets of conditions. And yeah, I think community essentially is key to this.
All right, thank you. So, as regards the conversation today, you know, I just wish that more people would be honorable. More people would do the right thing. More people would choose to do the right thing, even when they can get away with doing the wrong thing. Because the kind of person I am is, I like a space where I'm someone that's, if you tell me something, I'm going to take your word for it. I'm going to believe that you're going to do it, because if I did tell you something, then I'm going to fulfill my end of it. So it messes up my world, it messes up my head where I'm interacting with people who will not do what they say they're going to do. It just makes me feel betrayed or something. You get? So what I'm driving at is that it would be a much more nicer world if people were just honorable, if people did the morally right thing in any situation they find themselves, whether they can get away with it or not. Whether it's about breaking the law, whether it's about just being plain honest, whether it's about just telling the truth. We can't be perfect beings, but we can try, we can strive, we can be better. We can look at other human beings with compassion and, you know, show them love and show them brotherhood and help people. Basically, that's what the world should be about. You know, how to leave a positive mark in the lives of other people, and but not how you take advantage of them and, you know, just rubbish other people. So that's it. Thank you guys for coming to the stream today. I'm hoping on having a conversation with Mr. Pelu tomorrow, but it will be a much more earlier stream. We're going to be talking about Ibadi Islam. Um, so you guys should come around as well. And on Sunday, I'm talking to a Nigerian. I'm going to be having an interview with a Nigerian living in Canada, and he's going to be detailing his experiences on, you know, moving from sort of a raceless society in Nigeria, in Africa, to the West, where he's now immersed in a society that is just overwhelmed with racial etiquettes, racial conversations, and all that, and how he was struggling to find his own identity, how he had this internal struggle of, okay,
Wow.
this thing is alien to me, but somehow, before you know it, he started adopting those, you know, those things that were never a part of him. But thank God he's reversed all that. But that will be on Sunday. So I hope you guys come around as well. So
Oh, I will
thank
definitely
you.
watch
Thank
that,
you.
Charles.
Yeah. It will be fun. So it's bye for now. So catch you guys in another live stream.
Take care.
Thanks,
Good to talk
everybody.
to you guys.
See ya.
Yeah, bye.
See ya.